Some people walk into your life and feel strangely familiar, as if you've loved them before. But what happens when the person your heart remembers cannot remember you back? This is the story of Naya and Sejun, a story about memory, fate, and the connections that survive even when everything else is forgotten. Naya Mwangi had exactly 7 days left in Seoul, 7 days until her medical exchange program ended and she'd board a flight back to Nairobi, back to her job at Kenyatta National Hospital, back to the life she'd put on pause for 6 months. 6 months in South Korea had changed her. The precision of Korean practice, the kindness of her colleagues, the way Seoul itself felt. A city that never stopped moving but somehow still made space for quiet moments. She'd miss it. Missed the cherry blossoms that had bloomed when she arrived. Missed the autumn leaves that were falling now. Missed the way Korean phrases had started to come to her naturally. The way kimchi jjigae had become comfort food. The way this foreign city had somehow started to feel like home. But home was Nairobi. Home was her family. Home was the hospital where she trained, where she belonged, where her future waited. 7 more days. Then it would all become a beautiful memory. The rain started around 6 p.m. on that Tuesday evening. Naya was walking back to her apartment near Mapo Station, umbrella up. Her mind already on the farewell dinner her colleagues were planning for the weekend. She needed to buy gifts, something small but meaningful, something that said thank you in a way that transcended language barriers. She was thinking about this, making mental lists, when she heard it. The screech of tires, a sickening thud, the crash of metal against pavement. Naya's training kicked in before her mind could process what was happening. She ran toward the sound. Near Mapo Bridge, a car had swerved, trying to avoid something, maybe a puddle, maybe a pedestrian, and struck a cyclist. The bike was mangled. The car had stopped, the driver emerging with shaking hands and a phone already dialing emergency services. And on the wet pavement, illuminated by street lights and the glow of the stopped car's headlights, lay a man. He wasn't moving. Nia dropped her umbrella and ran to him, her knees hitting the wet ground, her hands already reaching to check for a pulse, to assess injuries, to do what she'd been trained to do. "Call an ambulance," she shouted in Korean to the gathering crowd. "Now!" Someone confirmed they'd already called. Nia leaned over the man, checking his breathing, his pulse. Alive. Unconscious, but alive. Head injury. She could see blood matting his dark hair. Possible concussion. Possible internal injuries. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice gentle, despite her racing heart. "Don't close your eyes. Help is coming, okay?" His breathing steadied slightly at the sound of her voice. She kept talking, soft, steady words in English and Korean, anything to keep him anchored, to keep his body fighting, to keep him from slipping away. When the paramedics arrived, she gave them a rapid assessment in Korean. Head trauma, unconscious approximately 3 minutes, pulse steady but weak, no visible fractures but internal injuries possible. They worked with the efficiency she'd come to associate with Korean emergency services, carefully stabilizing him, preparing to transport. As they lifted him onto the stretcher, his hand moved just slightly, and his fingers brushed against Nia's. The touch lasted maybe a second, but something passed between them. Something warm, something electric, something that made Nia's breath catch in her throat. She told herself it was adrenaline, the aftermath of an emergency situation, the relief of knowing he was alive. But it felt like more than that. It felt like recognition. Nia couldn't sleep that night. She kept seeing his face, what she'd glimpsed of it in the streetlights and chaos. Strong features, dark hair, young, maybe her age or slightly older. The way his breathing steadied when she spoke to him. She told herself she was being ridiculous. She was a medical professional. She'd treated hundreds of patients. This was no different. Except it felt different. At 3 a.m., she gave up on sleep and looked up which hospital the ambulance had gone to, Asan Medical Center, one of Seoul's best trauma centers. She could check on him, just to make sure he was okay, just to close the loop on the case. That was normal. That's what any good medical professional would do. That's what she told herself. The next morning, Nia showed up at a Seoul medical center during her break from her own hospital rotation. She explained to the nurse at the desk that she'd been the first responder at an accident scene yesterday evening near Mapo Bridge. Could she check on the patient's status? The nurse looked up the records. Han Se-jun, 31 years old, mild concussion, some contusions, but stable. He's awake now, room 412. Nia's heart beat faster. Would it be appropriate to visit? I just want to make sure he's recovering well. The nurse smiled. I think he'd appreciate knowing the person who helped him. Go ahead. Room 412 was in the recovery wing, sunny and clean with a window overlooking the city. Nia knocked gently on the doorframe. Come in, a voice said in Korean. She stepped inside. Han Se-jun was sitting up in bed, his head bandaged, his left arm in a sling, wearing a hospital gown and looking decidedly uncomfortable with the whole situation. He looked up when she entered, and his eyes widened. They stared at each other for a long moment. You, he said finally, his voice rough but certain. I know you. Nia blinked, confused. You do? You were unconscious yesterday when I... No. He shook his head slightly, then winced at the movement. I mean, yes, I don't remember the accident, but your face, I've seen it before. Nia's professional mask slipped into place. We've never met, I promise. I'm Nia Mwangi. I was the first person to reach you after your accident yesterday evening. I'm a nurse, so I provided initial care until the paramedics arrived. She watched his face carefully for signs of confusion, of head injury-related disorientation. Trauma patients sometimes had false memories, confabulation, a sense of familiarity with strangers. But Han Se-jun wasn't looking at her like a stranger. He was looking at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Nia, he repeated, testing the name. Then in English, Nia Mwangi, from Kenya? Yes. She stepped closer, noting his vitals displayed on the monitor. Everything looks stable. Mr. Han, it's normal after a head injury to feel disoriented. Sometimes our brains try to make sense of new information by connecting it to things that feel familiar. You've probably seen someone who looks like me or... No, his voice was firm. It's not that. He closed his eyes, clearly struggling. The doctor said I have some memory gaps from the concussion, but when I saw you, it felt like my mind remembered something my conscious brain forgot. Nia felt a chill run down her spine, that same strange feeling last night when their hands had touched. That's unusual, she said carefully, but not unheard of with head trauma. He opened his eyes again, looking directly at her. Don't you feel it? Feel what? Like we've met before, like this isn't the first time. Nia's professional composure wavered, because, yes, she did feel something. Something she couldn't explain and didn't want to acknowledge. I think you should rest, she said gently. Your brain has been through trauma. It needs time to heal. Stay. The word came out more like a plea than a request. Please, just talk to me. About anything. Your voice... He paused, looking embarrassed. Your voice feels safe. And so Nia stayed. She told herself it was for his medical well-being, that talking to patients was part of recovery, that establishing familiar, comforting presences helped with healing. But really, she stayed because she wanted to. She told him about Nairobi, about the chaos and beauty of her home city, about her family, about why she'd chosen nursing, about the 6-month medical exchange that had brought her to Seoul. He listened with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced before. When she asked about him, he told her about his work as an architect, about his obsession with bridges, the way they connected separate spaces, the engineering challenges, the beauty of a well-designed structure. I was actually cycling across Mapo Bridge when the accident happened, he said. I cross it almost every day. I never get tired of the view. Even in the rain? Nia teased. especially in the rain. Everything looks different in the rain, more honest somehow. They talked for over an hour before Nia realized she'd completely lost track of time. I should go, she said, standing reluctantly. You need to rest, and I need to get back to my hospital. Will you come back? Sejong asked. Tomorrow? Nia knew she shouldn't. This was crossing professional boundaries. This was getting personal in a way that didn't make sense. But she heard herself say, yes, tomorrow. Over the next 3 days, Nia visited Sejong every day. She told herself she was monitoring his recovery, checking on a patient she'd initially treated. Perfectly normal medical follow-up. Her colleagues started to tease her about it. Her roommate raised an eyebrow when she mentioned where she was going. But Nia couldn't seem to stop. Each visit, they talked more freely. She brought him fruit from the market, Korean pears that he said tasted better than any he'd had before. He showed her photos of his architectural projects, explaining the design philosophy behind each one. I'm obsessed with thresholds, the space between inside and outside, between here and there, the moment you cross from one world into another. Like bridges, Nia said. Exactly like bridges. They discovered strange coincidences. Both loved old movies. Both were terrible at singing but did it anyway. Both had a habit of walking when stressed. Both believed in signs, in fate, in things that couldn't be explained by logic alone. I used to be more skeptical, Sejong admitted. But after the accident, after seeing you and feeling like I knew you, I don't know what to believe anymore. The doctors had reduced his memory loss diagnosis to minor temporal confusion, nothing serious. He'd recover fully. But Sejong insisted the feeling about Nia wasn't confusion. Maybe we met in a past life, he joked. Then, more seriously, or maybe my soul recognized yours before my brain could catch up. Nia should have laughed it off, should have given him the medical explanation for why trauma patients sometimes form strong attachments to their caregivers. Instead, she whispered, maybe. On the 4th day, Sejong was cleared for discharge. Nia helped him pack his few belongings, the clothes he'd been wearing during the accident, now cleaned and folded by the hospital, a book someone had brought him, his phone and wallet. I never properly thanked you, he said as she handed him his jacket, for saving my life. I don't need to thank you. I did what anyone would. No. He stood close to her now, close enough that she could see the fading bruises on his temple, the small scar near his eye where a cut was healing. Nia's throat felt tight. I'm glad you're okay. Nia. He said her name like it meant something. I know this is fast. I know we just met, or at least that I know logically, but I need to ask you something. Her heart hammered. What? Can I see you again, outside this hospital? Take you to dinner or coffee or just anywhere you want. I don't want this to end here. Nia's mind raced. She had 3 days left in Seoul, 3 days before she flew back to Nairobi, back to her real life, back to everything that was waiting for her. Getting involved with someone now was insane, impractical, impossible. But looking at Sejong, at the hope and vulnerability in his expression, she couldn't bring herself to say no. I'm leaving Seoul, she heard herself say. In 3 days, my program ends and I fly back to Kenya. She watched Sejong's face fall, watched hope dim in his eyes. 3 days, he repeated quietly. Yes. They stood in silence, the hospital room feeling smaller, the weight of time running out pressing down on both of them. Finally, Sejong spoke. Then let's not waste them. Nia looked up at him. What? 3 days. That's what we have. So let's make them count. His voice was steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Show me your soul, the city you've been living in for 6 months, the places that matter to you. Let me have 3 days to remember. Nia. I know it's selfish. I know it might make leaving harder, but Nia. He reached out and gently took her hand. I can't let you disappear without knowing what this is between us. Can you? Nia's careful, professional, composed self screamed warnings.
This was foolish. This would hurt. This had no future. But a deeper part of her, the part that had felt that strange recognition from the moment their hands touched on that rainy street, whispered, "Yes." "No," she admitted. "I can't." "Then say yes to 3 days, to possibility, to seeing what this strange, impossible connection might be."
Naya took a breath, made a choice, stepped off a cliff. Yes, 3 days. The smile that transformed Sejun's face made the inevitable heartbreak worth it. They started that very afternoon. Sejun checked out of the hospital against the doctor's advice to rest for another day, and Naya called in a personal day from her rotation, something she never did. But this felt important enough to break her own rules. "Where first?" Sejun asked, as they stood outside the hospital entrance, Seoul spreading out around them in afternoon sunlight. "Bukchon Hanok Village," Naya said, without hesitation. "That was the first place I fell in love with in Seoul. 6 months ago, when I just arrived and everything felt overwhelming, I walked through those traditional houses and felt peaceful. Like the city was telling me I could find my rhythm here." "Then that's where we'll go." They took the subway, standing close together as the train rocked through tunnels, neither quite willing to let go of the moment. Sejun's arm was still in the sling, his head still bandaged, but he moved with confidence through the crowds, occasionally reaching out with the good hand to steady Naya when the train lurched. Each touch felt significant, electric, like their bodies were having a conversation their words hadn't caught up to yet. At Bukchon, they walked slowly through the narrow streets lined with traditional Hanok houses. The autumn afternoon painted everything in gold. The curved tile roofs, the wooden walls, the persimmon trees dropping their fruit. "It's beautiful," Sejun said, looking around. "I've lived in Seoul my whole life, but I forget to see it sometimes. You know?" "I do," said Naya. "That's what traveling does. Makes you see with new eyes." "Is that why you came here? To see with new eyes?" Naya considered the question. "Partly. But also, I wanted to prove something to myself. That I could be brave. That I could leave everything familiar and survive. Thrive even." "Did you? Prove it?" She smiled. "Yes, I think I did." They found a small tea house tucked between 2 Hanok buildings. Inside, it was quiet and warm, with low tables and cushions, traditional Korean tea sets, and the view of a tiny garden. They ordered yujacha, citrus tea, and sat across from each other, both suddenly aware of how intimate this felt. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," Sejun asked. Naya raised her eyebrow. "That's quite a request for a second real conversation." "We don't have time for small talk. 3 days, remember?" "Fair point." Naya wrapped her hands around her warm teacup, thinking. "Okay, sometimes I'm terrified that I'm not living the right life. That I chose nursing because it was practical, because it made my parents proud, because it was safe. But that somewhere there's another version of me living a completely different life, maybe a braver life, and I'll never know what that would have been like." Sejun listened without judgment, without trying to fix or minimize what she'd said. "Your turn," Naya prompted. He took a sip, gathering his thoughts. "After the accident, after I woke up in the hospital, I realized I couldn't remember the last time I was truly happy. Not content, not satisfied with my work, but actually joyful. And I thought, what kind of life am I living if I can't even remember joy?" "Do you remember it now?" He looked directly at her. "I'm starting to." They spent hours in Bukchung, wandering streets, taking photos, stopping at small shops where Naya showed him the souvenirs she'd considered buying for her family. "Get this one," Sejun said, pointing to a delicate mother-of-pearl jewelry box. "For your mother. It's beautiful and practical, the best combination." "How do you know that's what my mother would like?" "I don't, but you looked at it 3 times when you thought I wasn't watching. That means it matters to you, so it'll matter to her." Nia bought the box. As evening approached, they found themselves on a quiet overlook, Seoul spreading below them, lights beginning to flicker on across the city. "This is magical," Nia said softly. "I'm going to miss this." "The city or this moment?" "Both." Sojin moved closer, his shoulder touching hers. "Nia, can I ask you something personal?" "You've been asking personal questions all day." "More personal than usual." He paused. "What you felt when you touched my hand that night, when I was lying in the street, did you feel it?" Nia's breath caught. She'd been trying not to think about that moment, trying to rationalize it away as adrenaline or stress or any number of medical explanations. But Sojin deserved honesty. "Yes," she whispered. "I felt it." "What was it?" "I don't know. Maybe recognition, maybe, or connection. Something I can't explain." "I don't remember the accident," Sojin said quietly. "I don't remember falling or the pain or any of it. But the doctors told me that I was in and out of consciousness, and they said I kept saying something." "What?" He turned to look at her fully. "I kept saying, 'I know her. I know her voice,' over and over, even though we'd never met." Nia's tears pricked at her eyes. "That's impossible." "I know, but here we are anyway." They stood in silence, both grappling with something that shouldn't exist but did. Finally, Sojin spoke again. "I don't believe in past lives or fate or destiny, or at least I didn't. But Nia, what if our souls knew each other before our minds did? What if that's why this feels so right when it shouldn't?" "I don't know," Nia said honestly. "I don't know what to believe anymore." "Then maybe we don't have to know. Maybe we just have to feel." He reached out and gently took her hand. This time there was no accident, no emergency, no medical necessity, just the choice to touch, to connect. And the feeling was the same, that warmth, that electricity, that sense of coming home. Day 2 started early. Sejong texted her at sunrise. "I want to show you my soul, the places that matter to me. Fair trade from yesterday." They met at Gangnam Station and walked to his architectural office. Closed for the weekend, but he had keys. "This is where I spend most of my life," he said, unlocking the door. "For better or worse." Inside, the office was all clean lines and modern design, with drafting tables and computer stations and walls covered in architectural renderings. Sejong led her to his personal desk, where a large project spread across multiple monitors. "This is what I've been working on for the past year," he said. "A pedestrian bridge connecting 2 parks across the Han River. It's not funded yet, might never be built, but I can't let go of it." Nia studied the designs. The bridge was beautiful, curved and organic, more like a ribbon than a structure, with spaces for sitting, for viewing, for simply existing above the water. "It's stunning," she said. "Why might it not be built?" "Because beautiful things are often considered impractical. People want function over form, cheapest bid over best design. The city says it's unnecessary. There are already bridges. Why build another?" "But it's not just another bridge, is it?" "No." Sejong's voice was passionate now. "It's a threshold, a space between, a place where people can pause between where they're coming from and where they're going. That matters. That's worth building." Nia understood then why he was obsessed with bridges. They weren't just structures to him. They were metaphors, ways of connecting, of transforming, of creating possibility. "Like you and me," she said quietly. He looked at her. "What?" "We're in a threshold between meeting and parting, between possible and impossible, between here and there." Sejong stepped closer. "And what do people do in thresholds? They make choices about which side to step toward. And if both sides feel impossible, then maybe you stay in the threshold for as long as you can." They spent the morning at his office, Sejong showing her other projects, explaining his design philosophy,
sharing the parts of his life he rarely talked about with anyone. For lunch, he took her to a tiny restaurant in an alley near Sinsa Station, the kind of place you'd walk past without noticing unless you knew it was there. Best kalguksu in Seoul, he promised. My grandmother used to bring me here when I was a child. The knife-cut noodles were perfect, chewy and warming, in a rich anchovy broth that tasted like comfort. Tell me about your grandmother, Nia asked. Sejon's expression softened. She raised me, mostly. My parents both worked constantly. She was the one who noticed I loved to draw, who encouraged it even when my father said it wasn't practical. She died when I was 17. I'm sorry. She told me something before she died. She said, "Don't live a small life out of fear. Make your life as big as your heart can hold." He smiled sadly. I don't think I've done that. I've built a successful career, but I've been careful, safe, small. And now? Now I'm sitting across from a woman I shouldn't have met, eating noodles and talking about my dead grandmother, and for the first time in years, my life feels big. Nia felt tears threaten. Sejon. I know, 3 days. Then you leave and this ends and we go back to our small, safe lives. But for 3 days, can we be brave? Can we make our lives as big as our hearts can hold? Nia reached across the table and took his hand. Yes, for 3 days, let's be brave. That afternoon, they went to Namsan Tower. They took the cable car up the mountain, Seoul spreading out below them in afternoon light. At the top, surrounded by the famous love locks that covered every surface, they stood at the railing and looked out at the city. Couples come here and attach locks, write their names, lock it to the fence, throw away the key. Supposedly, it means their love will last forever. Do you believe that? No. I think love lasts when people choose it, not because of a lock on a fence. He paused. But I like the ritual, the public declaration, the hope in it. Nia noticed he was holding a small padlock. Did you... He looked almost embarrassed. I know we have 3 days, not forever. I know this is temporary, but I wanted there to be something that lasted, something that says we were here, that this mattered. He handed her a marker. Together, they wrote on the lock, Nia and Sejon, 3 days that felt like forever. They attached it to the fence among thousands of others, and Sejon threw the key over the railing, watching it disappear into the trees below. There, he said. Now when you're back in Nairobi, you'll know there's a piece of us still here, locked in place, permanent even if we're not. Nia couldn't speak. She just turned to him, and for the first time, he kissed her. It was soft and careful and full of everything they couldn't say, all the feeling they were trying to fit into 3 days, all the future they couldn't have, all the love that was growing despite the impossibility of it all. When they pulled apart, both had tears on their faces. I'm going to hurt so much when I leave, Nia whispered. I know, but it's worth it. You're worth it. They spent the rest of day 2 simply being together, walking through neighborhoods, sitting in parks, eating street food, talking about everything and nothing. That evening, Sejon took her to a jazz bar in Hongdae. Dim lighting, live music, the kind of atmosphere that made everything feel intimate and timeless. They sat close together in a corner booth, listening to the quartet play, not needing to talk, just existing in the same space. During a slow song, Sejon leaned close and whispered in her ear, "Dance with me." Here? Why not? We're in a threshold, remember? Normal rules don't apply. They moved to the tiny space in front of the stage, and Sejon pulled her close as he could manage with one arm still healing, and they swayed together. Nia rested her head against his shoulder. I could stay in this moment forever. So could I. But we can't. No, we can't. The song ended. Another began. They kept dancing, holding on to each other like they could stop time through sheer force of will. Day 3 arrived too quickly. Naya's flight was at 8 p.m. She had to be at the airport by 6, which meant they had until 5 at the latest. Probably earlier to account for traffic, for a check-in, for all the practical realities that were crashing back into their threshold moment. They met at dawn at Yeoldeok Hangang Park, where the river stretched wide and calm, reflecting the pink gold sky. I wanted to bring you here because this is where I come when I need to remember that life is bigger than my small problems. The river just keeps flowing, you know? It doesn't stop for anything. They sat on the grass near the water, watching Seoul wake up around them. Tell me what happens when you get home. I go back to my job at the hospital, see my family, resume my life. And us? What becomes of us? Naya had been trying not to think about this. I don't know. Long distance is hard. Korea to Kenya, it's half a world away. Different time zones, different lives. But possible, Sojin insisted. Difficult, but possible. Video calls, messages, maybe visits? Sojin. Naya turned to face him. I need to be realistic. We had 3 magical days, but real life isn't magical. It's complicated and messy and full of obstacles. You have your career here, I have mine there, and neither of us can just abandon our lives for someone we've known for 3 days. So, that's it? 3 days and then nothing? I don't know. Maybe we need to accept that some things are beautiful precisely because they're temporary, like cherry blossoms, perfect because they don't last. Sojin was quiet for a long moment. Then, I don't accept that. What? I don't accept that this has to end. I know it's impractical. I know it's only been 3 days. But Naya, I felt like I knew you before I met you. And now that I have met you, I can't just pretend this doesn't matter. It does matter, Naya said, tears falling now. It matters so much it hurts. But mattering isn't enough to overcome reality. Then we change reality. I'll come to Kenya, or you'll come back to Seoul, or we meet in the middle somewhere. I don't have all the answers, but I know I can't just let you disappear. Naya wanted to believe him, wanted to believe in the possibility he was offering. But she was practical, realistic, and she knew that feelings, even powerful ones, weren't enough to bridge continents. Let's not decide anything now. Let's just have this last day, and then see what happens. It wasn't the answer Sojin wanted, but he nodded. Okay, one more day, then we'll see. They spent their final hours doing simple things, having breakfast at a small cafe near her apartment, walking through Insadong, looking at art galleries and craft shops, sitting in a park, not talking, just being together. At 3 p.m., reality arrived. I need to go, Naya said, her voice breaking. My flight. I know. They stood facing each other on a Seoul street corner, pedestrians flowing around them, the city indifferent to their goodbye. Thank you. For 3 days. For making Seoul feel like more than just a place I visited. For making me feel seen, Sojin finished. You made me feel seen too, and known, and like my life was big enough to hold something unexpected. I'll never forget you. Please don't. He pulled her into a hug, and they stood there, holding each other, both trying to memorize the feeling, the warmth, the fit, the rightness of it. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying. If this is really goodbye, Sojin said, I need you to know something. That feeling I had when I first saw you, that recognition, it wasn't confusion or head injury or coincidence. It was real. You were meant to come into my life, even if only for 3 days. I believe that. I believe it too, Naya whispered. One last kiss, soft and sad and full of everything they couldn't have. Then Naya picked up her bag, turned, and walked away. She didn't look back. She couldn't. If she looked back, she'd never leave.
The flight back to Nairobi felt endless. Nia sat in her window seat, watching Korea disappear beneath clouds, and felt like she was leaving a piece of herself behind. She'd known this would be hard. She'd prepared for it. But nothing could have prepared her for how much it actually hurt. The woman next to her asked if she was okay. Nia realized she was crying and didn't even remember starting. "Boy trouble?" the woman asked sympathetically. Nia almost laughed. Boy trouble. Like Seo John was just some guy. Like what they had was ordinary heartbreak. "Something like that," she managed. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to the photos from the past 3 days. Seo John had booked Chan, the two of them at Namsan Tower. Their lock on the fence. His smile. Her smile. The evidence that it had been real. She should delete them. Moving on would be easier without constant reminders. But she couldn't bring herself to do it. Landing in Nairobi was surreal. Everything looked the same. Her city, her home, the familiar chaos and warmth of Kenya. But Neil felt different, like she left as one person and returned as someone else. Her family met her at the airport. Her mother, her father, her younger brother. All hugs and exclamations and questions about Seoul. "You look different," her mother said, studying her face. "Skinnier? Tired?" "Just a long flight, Mama." But her mother's eyes were knowing. There's something else. Something happened. "I'll tell you later," she promised. In the car ride home, squeezed between her brother and the pile of luggage, Nia checked their phone. One message from Seojan, sent an hour after she left him. "Made it home safely. The city already feels empty without you." She should respond. Say something. Acknowledge the message. But what could she say? She missed them already? That Korea felt like home in a way Nairobi hadn't? That she regretted leaving? All true, none of it helpful. She put her phone away without responding. The first week back in Nairobi was busy. Getting reinstated at the hospital, catching up with friends, readjusting to Nairobi time, Nairobi traffic, Nairobi life. She threw herself into work, taking extra shifts, volunteering for complicated cases, anything to keep her mind occupied. It mostly worked, except late at night, lying in her childhood bed when she'd pull out her phone and look at those photos again, when she'd wonder what Sewa John was doing, whether he was thinking about her, whether 3 days could really have meant as much to him as they had to her. He texted occasionally, short messages, "Thinking of you. Hope you're well. Seoul misses you." She responded with equally brief replies. "You too. I'm good. Miss it too." Neither pushed for more. Both seemed to understand that this was how they had to handle it. Gentle distance, cordial acknowledgement, the slow process of letting go. But it didn't feel like letting go. It felt like holding on while pretending not to. 3 weeks after Nia returned to Nairobi, a package arrived at her parents' house. From Seoul. Her mother brought it to her room, eyebrows raised. "This came for you. International delivery." Nia stared at the box, her heart racing. Seojan's name was on the return label. After her mother left, Nia sat on her bed and carefully opened the package. Inside was a small box wrapped in traditional Korean paper and an envelope. With shaking hands, Nia opened the envelope first. The letter inside was handwritten, several pages, Seojan's neat handwriting filling every line. She began to read. "Dearest Naya, I'm writing this 3 weeks after you left. 3 weeks of trying to convince myself that 3 days wasn't enough time to fall in love. 3 weeks of failing to convince myself of anything, except that I miss you more than I thought possible. I keep replaying those 3 days. The tea house in Bukchan where you told me about your fears, the lock we placed on Namsan Tower, dancing with you in that jazz bar, watching the sunrise over the Han River on our last morning. But mostly, I keep thinking about the moment I first saw you in the hospital. The feeling I had, that recognition,
that knowing. The doctor said it was head trauma, confusion, the brain trying to make sense of chaos. But Naya, I need to tell you something I haven't told anyone, not even you. The memory gaps from my accident, they were worse than the doctors knew. I lost more than just the accident itself. I lost weeks, maybe months. The doctors reduced their assessment because I could remember my name, my job, my family. But there were blank spaces, things I should remember but don't. Except one thing. I remembered you. Not meeting you, not your face, but a feeling. A dream I'd been having for months before the accident. Of someone whose voice could call me, whose presence felt like home, who I kept reaching for but could never quite touch. When I woke up in that hospital and saw you, it wasn't déjà vu or confusion. It was recognition. Like my subconscious knew you were coming before my conscious mind did. I know how this sounds. I know you're a woman of science and reason. I know there's probably a medical explanation. Stress dreams, pattern-seeking behavior, the brain's tendency to find meaning in random events. But Naya, what if it wasn't random? What if some part of me knew I was going to meet you? What if that's why I was on that bridge at that exact moment? What if the accident wasn't just bad luck, but the universe's way of making sure we collided? I'm not asking you to believe in fate or destiny. I'm just asking you to consider that what we felt in those 3 days was real. And real things, important things, don't just disappear because they're inconvenient or impractical. I've spent 3 weeks trying to move on, trying to tell myself it was just a moment, just 3 days, just a beautiful memory to cherish and release. But I can't. I don't want to. So I'm writing to ask you something. What if we didn't let this go? What if we admitted that 3 days wasn't enough? That we want more, weeks, months, years, even though we don't know how to make it work? I know the obstacles. Korea to Kenya is 7,000 kilometers, different time zones, different continents. You have your career, I have mine. Neither of us can just drop everything. But what if we tried anyway? Not perfectly, not easily, but real. Video calls, messages, visits when we can manage it. Building something across distance because what we have is worth building. I'm not asking you to decide right now. I'm not asking you to commit to anything you're not ready for. I'm just asking you to stay open, to not close the door, to let this possibility exist a little longer. Because Naya, you changed my life. In 3 days, you made me feel more alive than I have in years. You made me want to be brave, to live a big life, to reach for the impossible. And maybe that's selfish. Maybe I should let you go, let you resume your life without complications. But I can't. Not yet. So I'm writing you this letter. And a gift. Open it when you're ready. All my love, Sejun. P.S. Our lock is still on Namsan Tower. I checked. Surrounded by thousands of others, but I found it. 3 days that felt like forever. It's still there, still locked in place, still permanent, even when everything else feels uncertain. Naya read the letter twice, tears streaming down her face. Then she opened the small wrapped box. Inside was a necklace, delicate, silver, with a tiny pendant shaped like a bridge. Not just any bridge, but Sejun's bridge, the one from his designs, the pedestrian bridge connecting 2 parks across the Han River. A note was attached. For when you need to remember that bridges connect separate spaces, that thresholds are where we choose which direction to move, that some things are worth building even when they seem impossible. Naya held the necklace, letting the bridge pendant rest in her palm. And she made a choice. She video called him. It was 2 a.m. in Nairobi, which made it 8 a.m. in Seoul. Sejun answered on the second ring. Naya. His face filled her screen, exhausted, unshaven, but beautiful. I wasn't sure you'd... I got your letter and the necklace. And I need to tell you something too. She took a breath, gathering her courage. That night on the street, when I first touched your hand, I felt it, that recognition, that knowing. The doctor said it was head trauma, confusion, the brain trying to make sense of chaos. But Naya, I didn't know what it was. But Sejun, I'd been trying to move on for 3 weeks, trying to tell myself it was just 3 days, just a moment, just a beautiful memory to cherish and release. But you can't? No, I can't. Because you're right, what we felt was real. And real things don't just disappear because they're inconvenient. She watched his expression transform, hope blooming across his face. "So what do we do?" he asked softly. "I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I know I don't want to let this go. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Even though it's hard? Even though we're 7,000 kilometers apart? Even though, maybe because it's hard, maybe the hard things are the ones worth fighting for." Sejun's smile could have powered the sun. "Nayam Wanji, are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying yes, to trying, to video calls and messages, and impossibly long flights whenever we can manage it. Building something across distance because what we have is worth building." "You're sure?" "No, but I'm brave, remember? That's what these 6 months in Seoul taught me, how to be brave." "Then let's be brave together." They talked for 2 hours about logistics, when they could visit, how they'd manage time zones, what this relationship would look like across continents. About fears. What if it didn't work? What if distance killed what they'd built? What if 3 days had been lightning in a bottle that couldn't be replicated? About hopes. What if it did work? What if love was stronger than geography? What if they were building something that could last? When they finally ended the call, both exhausted but happy, Naya lay back on her bed with the necklace still in her hand. Her mother knocked softly and entered. "The boy from Seoul?" she asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Naya nodded. "Is it serious?" "I think so. I know it's complicated, Mama. I know long distance is hard, but..." Her mother held up a hand. "Let me tell you something about your father and me. When we met, he was studying in London. I was in Nairobi. Everyone said it wouldn't work, that distance kills love, that we should find people closer to home. I didn't know that. We did 2 years of letters and expensive phone calls before he moved back to Kenya. 2 years of missing each other, of counting down days, of wondering if we were crazy. Was it worth it?" Her mother smiled. "Look at our family. Look at our life. What do you think?" Naya felt tears prick her eyes. "The hard things are worth fighting for," her mother said, echoing Naya's own words to Sejun. "If he makes you feel loved and seen and brave, then fight for it. I'll support you." "Even though it's complicated?" "Especially because it's complicated. Easy love doesn't teach you anything. Hard love, love that requires courage and patience and daily choice, that's the kind that changes you." Over the next 8 months, Naya and Sejun built their relationship across 7,000 kilometers. Video calls became routine. Morning for her, evening for him, or vice versa. Both learning to accommodate the 6-hour time difference. They messaged throughout their days. Photos of mundane moments, updates about work, jokes that only made sense to them. The small intimacies that kept them connected. It wasn't easy. There were days when the distance felt impossible, when Naya went to a colleague's wedding and wished Sejun was there as her date, when Sejun had a bad day and wanted Naya's physical presence, not just her voice through a scream. There were misunderstandings caused by fatigue or timing or the limitations of text-based communication. There were moments when both wondered if they were being foolish, holding on to something so hard to maintain. But there were also moments of profound connection. Late-night calls where they fell asleep on video, just wanting to feel less alone. Surprise deliveries, flowers to Nairobi, coffee to Seoul, little reminders that they were thinking of each other. Countdowns to visits. Sejun flew to Nairobi after 4 months. Naya flew to Seoul after 6. Each visit felt like coming home and falling in love again simultaneously. And slowly, they built something real. Not perfect, not easy, but real. 8 months after Naya left Seoul, Sejun called with news. "My bridge got approved." "What?" "The pedestrian bridge, the one I showed you. The city approved funding. It's going to be built."
Naya screamed with joy, causing her colleagues to stare at the hospital. That's incredible. When? How? I don't know all the details yet, but Naya, there's something else. What? I submitted it. I submitted it with a new name. The city accepted it. What name? The Threshold Bridge. After what you said about bridges being thresholds where we make choices. Nia felt tears stream down her face. And there's one more thing, Sojin continued. A dedication plaque. It'll say, for those brave enough to cross between worlds. And Nia, I want your name on it, as a co-designer. But I didn't design it. You inspired it. You taught me what bridges really mean. You showed me that connection is worth building even when it's hard. That's design philosophy. That belongs to you too. Seljun, there's one condition though. What? You have to come to the opening. In about 2 years when it's finished. You have to stand on the bridge we inspired together. I'll be there, Nia promised. I wouldn't miss it for the world. 2 years later, Nia stood on the Threshold Bridge with Seljun. The structure was even more beautiful in person than in drawings, curved and organic, spanning the Han River, with seating areas and viewing platforms, and space for people to pause between where they were coming from and where they were going. The dedication plaque gleamed in the afternoon sun. The Threshold Bridge, for those brave enough to cross between worlds. Designed by Han Seljun with Nia Muwanji. We built this, Seljun said, his arm around her. Not just the bridge. Us. Against all the reasons it shouldn't work. And look, Nia said, pointing. People are using it, connecting, making their own choices about which direction to go. Like we did. Like we did. They stood on their bridge, watching Sel flow around them. And Nia realized something. She wasn't in the threshold anymore. She'd made her choice. And her choice was standing beside her, smiling like the future was a bridge they'd built together. Some people walk into your life and feel strangely familiar. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, if you're very brave, that familiarity becomes home. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. And real things are always worth fighting for. Always.